Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of the Rethinking Podcast. On this podcast, we will have weekly episodes with rethinkers from both in and outside of the organization. To kick off the podcast, we talk with all the chairs of Rethinking Economics NL today. We hope you enjoy the conversation as much as we did. Welcome to Rethinking with a Table of Chairs. Hey everybody, thank you so much for showing up. We got all the chairs of Rethinking Economics NL, which I think is a pretty impressive thing to plan and figure out. So I'm really glad you're all here. So basically, this is going to be a looking backwards and looking ahead of all the chairs because we have all past, present, and future chairs. So yeah, I'd really like for everybody to shortly introduce themselves. Let's just start with the chair who started it. Joris, can you introduce yourself?
I can, but I'm in a particularly noisy spot right now. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine. We can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. So my name is Joris Tieleman. I studied economics in Utrecht and Amsterdam, and I thought it was interesting, but I thought it was also missing a lot of important stuff. Then decided to start Rethinking Economics with a few friends. And a lot of people I had never met. 5.5 years ago, and now I'm I don't know if I'm out of it, but out of most of the practical stuff, and also work at the Volkskrant as a journalist, as a day job. Yeah, that's me.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. So, Sam.
I've been. I started studying economics and had a quite early on. I bought this book on the history of economic thought, and I thought it was amazing. And since then, I still think economics is amazing. But then I came to class, and there were nowhere all these fantastic ideas and debates, but it was just this graph that I had to memorize. And I had to do the math, and I thought like, whoa, wait, I'm not learning nothing about the economy. And then I had been frustrated for a year on, and unfortunately my friends at uni didn't weren't critical at all about it, so I felt quite lonely. But then I found out that actually there was this group called Rethinking Economics, and they had on their website that they had this national meeting, and I was like, whoa. And I went there and pretty much, got to know Joris there, but also a lot of the others, and pretty much since then have been involved. Similar like Joris, officially I'm sort of out, but we seem to never really make it out and always stay involved. So, but that's great. I love it still. So, yeah. And besides Rethinking Economics, I just finished my master. And I'm working now together with Elisa on a policy project, thinking about how to reform the economy. So not economics education, but the actual economy in the real world around us. Also in the aftermath of COVID, and thinking about sustainability and social issues. So that's, I think, at least very, very privileged to be working on that project. And beside the nerdy me, there is also the hip hop Sam, who does breakdance and rapping. So not to only sit at the table and be the chair, who I can also sort of do the spinning chair. So that's also good to stay human in that sense.
Amazing. And congratulations for finishing your master. So, Elisa?
Yes, actually I have works happening at my place right now, so I apologize if you can hear any of it. My story is quite similar to that of Sam, although I was studying economics in Utrecht. I decided to study economics because I was very interested in how all the world worked, I guess, power relations, how countries came to be how they were, and people, how they came to be in the positions that they were. Although I fooled myself with thinking that economics was about that, right? And I, halfway through my first year, I approached one of my teachers, Marcel Bouwmans at Utrecht, and he said, hey, well, you shouldn't leave this department, you should actually stay. And there's Rethinking Economics, where you can find a whole network of people that, think like you. And I was like, wow. So there I was, when Sam was back then the chair. Just a couple of months after, I became super active. I was very passionate about it, so I became super active. And I became the treasurer of that same board for some time. And then I chaired the first festival version that we had. I had a lot of fun. It was an amazing experience. And then I became the chair the year after. So I chaired the organization for 1 year. And yeah, then I actually took a little bit too much on. So my advice to Aleksandra is give yourself the space and the time to really, really, focus and give all your love to your position, because it's really a lot. Even if you think that you can like multitask, I mean, you should also really, really just, give the attention it deserves. So yeah, then I stopped towards the end of the year, and because of it, I took an extra year to finish my bachelor's, which I finally finished this year. And I'm gonna start a master's in Amsterdam as of next week. And I'm also, as Sam already said before, we're working together on a research project regarding public policy in the Netherlands. Yeah.
Cool. Congratulations as well. And so really short, what are you gonna do upcoming year for master?
It's a research master on international development studies.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So
hoping to get like all the multidisciplinary perspective that I really, really was missing in my bachelor's. Yeah.
I'm hoping the same then. So Marc, how about you?
I guess my interest in economics really started in the last years of high school, where I was reading a lot on the Eurozone crisis and trying to understand why Germany was adopting so disastrous policies and smashing Greece. And then after high school, I was volunteering for an NGO working on climate policy, and then I got increasingly interested in sustainability and how it links to economic development, how in general economic tools, economic instruments can be utilized to foster climate transition. And kind of through that experience and through reading about different ways of using economics and reforming economics, I heard of Rethink Economics quite early. And when I was starting my bachelor's in politics, psychology, law and economics at the University of Amsterdam, I kind of looked around what's going on in the university, what cool associations are there to join. And so I found Rethinking Economics, and I was really kind of intrigued and really intrigued by the whole community of rethinkers and the stuff that they were doing. I really wanted at that point a community that is interested in discussing the issues I was passionate about, and that also tried to foster real change. And I got that. So I was quite happy in finding this community and then staying involved throughout my studies. Eventually became the chair in my last year of studies. So now finished my bachelor after 3 years in Amsterdam. Currently doing an internship with positive money on kind of green monetary policy, and then doing my master's in Vienna on socio-ecological economics. And yeah, so I'm still the chair, but I'm very kind of excited to hand over to Alex in the next week.
Ooh, so then Aleksandra, last one too.
So hi, my name is Aleksandra Twardowska. I'm from Poland, and I'm a third year politics, psychology, law and economics student like Marc, and I will be your chair for next year. Actually, the very reason why I chose to study PPLE and not just economics was because I don't think economics, the way it was taught, the way it is taught right now, really equipped me to understand and address, the complexity of 21st century problems such as climate change, which was one of my main interests. before, I also used to be the chair of Fossil Free UVA, which is a fossil fuel divestment activist group at our university. At the moment, I also intern at Center for Sustainable Development Studies, where I promote work of academics who focus their work on sustainability, so also alternative modes of thinking. But I think overarching all of this, yeah, I would say I'm a very passionate rethinker, so I'm very excited to take over this year.
Oh, we are very excited to see what you're going to do. Okay, so the idea of this meeting is that I'm going to post a statement, and then you can all say basically yes is a thumbs up, or no, just do nothing, and then we'll see why. Okay? All right. So first statement is the following. My main motivation for changing economic education comes from the desire to change the world. So thumbs up if that's a yes. All right. So let's hear about it. Sam, you want to take it away?
Sure. Although, do I know what to say? First of all, I just quickly want to thank Aleksandra, if I say it correctly, for picking up the torch for the coming year. I really appreciate it. Cool. But sorry, I'll get back to the question. Yeah, I think at least for me, like this is sort of the story we always had, or at least I always thought with Rethinking Economics, but I passionately believe in this. Like, why is it relevant to change economics education compared to, for example, education of archaeologists, which I think is also a fascinating subject that I'm really interested in, but I don't think I have the motivation that I have for economics for it, so to say. And I think that's really because economists are really influential in this world and really have a lot of impact on whether we solve really big societal problems like climate change, like a COVID right now, like the economic policies we pursue influence people, their lives. And I think that's, at least for me, where a lot of the motivation comes from. Like, this is not just interesting or funny, but this is actually like really big and important for people, their lives. So yeah, if we don't have the right ideas, we pursue policies that are not really helpful for us as human beings and this planet. So I think, yeah, I don't know, maybe I've said too much already, but that's for me at least always why I think this is so relevant.
Cool. Okay, so now anybody who wants to jump in, the floor is yours.
Did anyone actually vote no?
Nope, everybody voted yes.
Okay. Maybe just to add on to that, like I also voted, I voted yes, obviously. But I think kind of there are two stories in why people joined Rethinking, and the one is really that the prime motivation was to change the world, and then economics education was just kind of the area that we were involved in, and that, as Sam outlined, has a lot of connections with the real world. But there's also certainly the other story of I was discontent with economics education myself, and I wanted to change it because I wanted to have a better education myself and leave a better education for the students who would come after me. I mean, we already heard that, and I think particularly the Sam's and Elisa's story. So while I voted yes, for me the prime motivation is kind of changing the world, you want to put it broadly. I think the two sides of the motivation are present in the community.
Elisa or Aleksandra, sorry.
I didn't know that how to do a thumbs up, so I.
It's fine. Don't worry.
I'm a little bit old right now, but anyway. One thing, if I could add, right, because I think Sam and Marc have summarized it pretty well. For me, one really pressing issue, which I think has a little bit to do with education in general, but I lived it very heavily in economics education, at least, was that none of my colleagues, none of my classmates were really critical or interesting in looking beyond what they were being taught. And I find that is such a pity. I find that, at least in the Netherlands, a lot of young people, 18 years old, they just come out of high school and they say, hey, I'm going to study economics. A lot of them, first of all, think that economics is the same than business. they don't see the difference. So they say, oh, I can study this in university and have a cooler name on my diploma, but then I'm gonna do business. So it's a bit of a weird choice. And then secondly, well, they're like, oh yeah, I want to have a generic diploma so that I can go everywhere. So that's, I lived that in first person, and that was a bit sad. And I have actually a very nice anecdote when in my first year I was in a tutorial and we were talking about rhino horns, the market for rhino horns in microeconomics. And I remember, so we were talking about black markets, right, and incentives. And I was just so fascinated by the topic, and I was like, hey, please give me more. I want to know more about what happens when there's a black market. What are the incentives behind? How does it work? Because this is, real world, it sounded to me. It's not apples and pears or cheese and wine, it was really something interesting. And I remember that everybody around me started talking, because I got into this conversation with the teacher about it, and everybody else just zoned out, like, talking about the weekend or whatever. And I was just like just for once that we get like an interesting real world example, especially our first year, which is when we are entering this discipline. Like, you should be especially hungry for these things, and I didn't see it. So I was just really critical of my own surrounding. I was I just couldn't understand that youngsters like me wouldn't be interested in knowing further and criticizing the very things that were being taught to us. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I just wanted to say that.
Wow, I would say it does. So Aleksandra, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I would say I'm still at an age where I think people like me and students like me can really change the world. Maybe it's a naive way of thinking, but I really believe that. And so I think economics is a very good tool, an important tool to address some of the major world problems. And so, getting the appropriate economics education is really crucial to kind of prepare our generation to come out of the university and really be prepared to tackle these problems. And so definitely yes.
Great. And Joris, I see everything works. You got settled in.
Yes. I'm
You
now
want to add anything?
home and dry. Well, home at least. I don't know. No, I think it's all been said, really. Yeah. I mean, there's just the intellectual curiosity of just wanting to figure out how sort of the big mechanisms of the world work, and you want to know that because if you're going to make a positive difference in this world, then it's really useful to know that. And also for me, the desire to actively campaign to change economics education is because I think the discipline is, in a sense, well, maybe that's one addition, that the discipline right now is very powerful in the world in a way that I think is not quite right. So part of the power the discipline has is because it speaks very much with one voice, because everyone gets the same ideas, but that one voice is only right part of the time. But it sort of automatically speaks with that one voice, working from the same assumptions and the same basic ideas. And I think it would be better if the discipline were a bit more divided in the sense that there's active debate. It would make economists less of a driving force in the world, but I think that would be good, especially given the ecological crisis that we now have, largely flowing from our economic system.
Okay. Wow, those are some good answers. So the next statement is, when thinking about the prospects of changing economics education, I am optimistic. So if you are optimistic, please give it a thumbs up. And if not, then nothing. This is interesting. Okay, so we have 2 no and 3 yes. That is interesting. Aleksandra, do you want to start?
Sure. As the new chair, I think I kind of have to be optimistic because, I'm leading this mission for next year. But I really am optimistic. I think that with the different crises that we are facing right now. So with the COVID pandemic, but also with the looming climate crisis and a lot of also political crises that we're facing, there are a lot of paradigms shifting, and there is a lot of space for this new transformative thinking, and also acknowledging that increasing complexity of societies and globalization. I think there is almost a need for this for our mission to be realized. And I think increasingly there are more and more actors on like the global arena, so political actors, but also organizations, but also people really searching for this breath of change. And I think we are here to realize it, and I'm excited to take it on.
Cool. Sam, you've been nodding a lot. You want to add to that?
No, it's great to hear, and I totally agree. And I personally, I think when I started as chairman, I was quite pessimistic and less optimistic than I am now. And I was mainly looking at the past, and I was thinking like, wait, this problem has been there for decades. There have been so many people trying to solve it. Why would we like all of a sudden be the special generation that actually does it? But I think Aleksandra is completely right. I think a lot of the problems in the real world actually force and put a lot of pressure on economics as a discipline to really take a different look at like how we are educating like the next generation. But of course, I mean, I think I get already where Marc and Joris are heading with their reactions in a minute. I am not completely. I am. I don't know. I've like. Let's put it this way. I think that there will definitely be change in economics education, and there already is. But it's more of a question of whether the core sort of the neoclassical like supply and demand curves, like whether that's like really that core will remain in place as sort of the thing that defines what we do as economists. I think that's where the really crucial question is, and I'm not entirely sure which way it will go. We'll see.
Okay, well, Marc, you want to go onward from there?
Yeah, so maybe to start off, I partly chose no, because I think it's fun to be a bit contrarian, but also because I think there's sometimes it's useful to take a more pessimistic outlook. And that is not to say that as kind of that kind of pessimism is a good guide for action. I totally understand why Aleksandra is optimistic regarding the future changes in economics education. And frankly, I also think that economics education will continue to improve. And just looking around in the world right now, so much is in turmoil, in an upheaval. And I think there is a lot of potential for change and for change for the better. I think the reason why I'm pessimistic, or maybe it's not so much pessimistic, maybe it's more that my judgment of the current status quo and my judgment of how that will change in the next month and years is quite bad, is that I feel like the speed of the challenges that we're facing and the speed of the problems that we have to tackle is far greater than the speed of progress in improving economics education. So even while it is getting better, I think it's not getting better as quickly as it should be. And that very much relates to the real world point of economics education and how we're teaching our students has real implications. If that is just to say that through kind of educating our students better, they are better equipped to cope with the challenges in the future, or if that is to say through kind of learning the real world in the education, students mobilize and take to the streets, or they address their professors and ask them to get active on, for example, demanding a higher carbon price when they speak to politicians. So I think there are various mechanisms on how econ education can improve the real world. And if I see the challenges that we're facing and the speed with which they're deteriorating, I think just the speed of progress in economics education is not enough. And that's why I'm pessimistic.
Okay. So then I guess Joris, you're the other one who said no?
Yeah. Yes, the reason I said no is because I was thinking about how big of an international um, juggernaut economics education is now. So sort of all organized around books like Mancu's and so on, and very very centralized. And I guess also because a lot of the people teaching economics are very stuck mentally, it seems, also tied to whatever tradition they have published in for 20 years or 30 years. But to be honest, when I heard Aleksandra speak, I started to change my mind a bit, because you don't have to change all of the existing people and all of the existing structures in order to really materially change how we train the people who give economic advice and who take economic decisions. And I think she's right. This is really a global moment of change. So yeah, I will switch.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, Elisa, do you want to add anything to the yes or the no?
Just one thing I think that wasn't mentioned, because I also am like, yeah, I'm very optimistic. I did vote yes. However, I do think that it is more likely that, and this is at least what I have experienced, that there are new doors opening for those who are willing to step out of this economic core, rather than really the economic core changing
Yes.
in itself. But I mean, that's an alternative, right?
Ah, that's a good point, though. Cool. Okay, so next statement. Rethinking economics attracts a particular, almost niche type of student. Oh, that's nice. Okay, cool. So we have 3 yeses and 2 nos. So let's see. Mark, what do you want to say on the topic?
I'm actually really unsure. I think there are certain characteristics that are particular to the Rethinking Economics community. But in the end, I didn't thumbs up, because I think it is a particular, also broad and diverse community. There are so many issues that people are passionate about who join Rethinking. There are those who primarily care about economics education and improving curricula. There are those who are who really want to improve the world and have this more political, more outward-looking approach. And maybe, the question is, or the statement is a bit difficult. I would say there's a particular type of rethinking student, or like person who's attracted to rethinking, but I don't think it's that niche. Yeah, that's why I didn't raise my hand.
Lisa?
Yeah, I for the same reasons than Mark. I think it's not that niche, to be honest. In the events and situations that I've managed to attend and to meet rethinkers around the world, I really think that there is a diverse set of motivations behind being a rethinker, and very different type of people as well. Like, yeah, some people are more like very intellectual, like very focused on making an intellectual debate. Other people more focused on activism. Other people just want to do super active stuff and then want to be active everywhere, right? So I think that it differs. Yeah.
Sam?
Yeah, I agree. There are very different people, and I think we probably here as well. We are also all different people, but I still think that, yeah, but I mean, the Mark also said this. Like, there are some overarching characteristics. I think it's fair to say most of us are quite nerdy and really interested in learning how the world works. Well, yeah, as Elisa told, like, there are many students who just don't give a fuck and just want to pass the course and get the diploma as quick as possible and get out of this room. So I think in that sense, a lot of us are nerdy, and at least from what the people I've known, I think almost everyone has this, you can call it activist or idealism of at least wanting to make the world a better place. I think if that, I've so far I haven't met any real rethinker who lacks that motivation, so to say. So I think it's sort of that activist nerdism sort of, but within that there are still many kinds of people. So yeah, sort of yes and no.
Aleksandra, what do you have to say on this?
I think I understood this question a bit differently, but yeah, I was really conflicted when answering this statement because I would want to answer no, because I would want, every student and everyone to be a rethinker. But it is a niche, because if it wasn't a niche, then we would have a lot more rethinkers and students at universities. It isn't to say that we're a very small group, because it's an expanding network, and I'm very optimistic that it will be expanding, but it is a niche because, it's also one thing to be passionate about this issue, but also then be enthusiastic enough to actually join the organization and then be active. And that takes time and a lot of, perseverance. And I don't think all students have this. And I wish it was different, though.
Okay, well that's fair. I get that. If you want to change the world, it's really nice to have more people. So, Joris, you want to finish this round off?
Yeah, pretty much everything's been said. Only one characteristic I have to add, which seems really constant and a really major part of every rethinker I've met, is curiosity. In the national and also in the international gatherings, I often have just fascinating conversations and meet a lot of really cool people who do stuff I would never have thought about and think stuff I would never have thought about, and far beyond economics. So I don't think for anyone this curiosity is limited to the field of economics. So for me, I've found it a really diverse crowd. But this seems to be maybe the major thing, binding everyone together. Yeah.
Cool. So talking about the Rethinking organization and everybody who joins, the next statement is, as chair, I would describe Rethinking Economics NL as a hierarchical organization. I got 5 no's. That's very clear. Who wants to start?
I can say something already. I think personally, reflecting on my time as a chair, I think organization is necessary for things to be done. And we could have a whole discussion and write PhDs about this. So I think I'm just going to say like very lightly. I think things worked very well because we knew how, like, we assigned each other roles, and that made it just easier for you to focus on one thing. But when I think of the word hierarchy, I really think of somebody being on top of somebody else. And I don't think that, at least as far as I've been active in everything in economics, I've never experienced that. So I wouldn't describe it that way.
Oh, who wants to jump in?
Well, I voted a definite no, because I think the organization has never been hierarchical, and it doesn't seem mode of organizing that fits it very well. But apart from someone being the boss, which is the explicit form of hierarchy, I think there's also stuff to think about, like who speaks for the organization. And that doesn't mean that they then boss over everyone else, but that is also a form of maybe power differential between people. But then again, if nobody wants to speak for the organization, then nothing is said. So I think this is also for the group of the coming year a question. If everyone is modest about not putting themselves forward too much, then nothing gets said. And this is for me the risk of the other end of the scale. Hierarchy is here, we don't want to be there, but if you say everyone is super equal, so no one should step forward, then nothing happens sometimes. So this is something to think about.
How did you do that as chair? How did you keep that balance?
I spoke out a lot and still do, but it's I mean, I guess in a way I had the easiest position in all this because I was the first chair of Rethinking Netherlands, and then there's no one been before you who you have to maybe consider. And as far as I'm concerned, people of the group now don't have to consider me or Sam or Mark or Ellie, but I can speak for me. You don't have to concern about what I said and whether that matches. But for the earlier you come, maybe the easier it feels, and the less of an inheritance you might feel. But what we did two things. So basically everyone who wants to speak out can do it, and we started a writers platform where we try to help different people in the group who had an idea to maybe write an opinion piece or a blog or something else, to help them in the writing process. So to actively invite people and try to lift up the voices, rather than step back yourself. So this was sort of the solution we did.
Okay, Sam, did you also experience it this way?
Yeah, very much. Yeah, I was. I think what for me, like, really, I was quite surprised by, and like, I got involved in this national meeting. I think it was in June or something, and then 2 months later, I was asked to become chair of this organization. So I think that shows how quickly, if there was a hierarchy, like, you would have time to move up, so to say. But here there was no hierarchy to move up or anything. There was just who is motivated to do to really be active in this movement, who wants to do what, and then we divided the tasks. Although, of course, I mean, we are all, I think, quite biased in the sense of being chairs and then asking if this is a hierarchical organization. We are obviously in a nice position to say no. But I think, as far as I've been, like, my experience has been, as Joris said, like, if someone wants to do something, I think we give people the space and we try to enable them to fulfill their own things. So I at least have not had experiences of people trying to push other people down or be like, no, I'm the chair, you can do this or something. But yeah, I think if also, like, for people who want to join, I think it's like the idea that if you come up with a good idea, then you can just do it, and that it's really that simple. I think, at least for me in the beginning, it was sort of hard to get used to the fact that if I come up with something, I can just do it. And then that's part of rethinking economics. Like, at least my experience, it has been so simple. But yeah, getting people to realize this and to really become part of the movement in that sense, to really do this, I think that's sometimes a challenge.
Cool. So, Mark, how was this for you? And also, how did COVID affect the organization according to you?
Okay, the COVID is a big one. I'm gonna respond to it later. I think the question that Joris mentioned raised is really important, and I am actually really grateful of how kind of the spirit that kind of my predecessors transferred to me. I think from what I've known of kind of the transition and the conversations I had with all of you, was that you very much transmitted the sense of everybody who is passionate about this issue, who is motivated to do actions and projects, should completely be encouraged to do so. And I think that is very valuable, and I think that is a cornerstone of what Rethinking Economics is. I think we've been very open in terms of just inviting people to join. There are no entry requirements, there is no real check. If people are fit to be part of this community, it is really, do you want to be part of this community, and do you want to contribute to it? And then it becomes it's a very quick process of, we met everyone for coffee, then we talk about the projects, and then you're immediately very much part of the core of what Rethinking Economics Netherlands is. And I think that's great. And I think about kind of this, certainly what I also recognize in my experience, what Joris mentioned about, sometimes there are not that many people who are actually willing or able or have time, or for whatever reason are willing to speak out or to take up a speaking arrangement or something similar. but I guess the response to that is kind of what I said before, this constant encouragement of others to take up roles and to be really considered, asking around who has time, and don't be too narrow in people you approach for taking up certain tasks. I think another kind of tension that is important, maybe useful to keep in mind also for the future, is I think something that comes out of Rethink Economics being a volunteer-based organization, which means that much of the motivation and activities that we're doing relies on us being friends with each other, us knowing each other, and then through kind of also wanting to work with that particular person or be part of that group, implementing certain projects and activities. And I think it's important to keep in mind that this doesn't kind of evolve to, at least from the outside, perceived clubbiness, but that it is important to kind of, although we kind of all maybe a broad friend group, or know each other personally and value each other personally, that we continue to be very open and invite everybody who is interested to join what we're doing.
Okay, and then Aleksandra, I mean, basically you're the fresh eye, so you can say if it looks hierarchical from the outside coming in. What do you think?
Yeah, so obviously I don't have any chair experience yet, so it was very interesting to hear all your thoughts on this. I also voted no, though, because the way I see hierarchy is having this, one system of thought, one opinion, or like one system of organizing thing coming top down. And I think that really contradicts, the main objective of our organization, which is pluralism. And even though that's a mission for education, I think it also transcribes to our organization and like the way we do things within it. And so I think it's really about, having a network and interaction of different ideas between people. So it's also very important that this hierarchy or this one system of thinking isn't the one that's prevailing. But it was interesting for me to hear Joris's point that, you still need some sense, some way of organizing things in the organization in order to work efficiently as an organization. So you need some clearly defined roles. But it was also interesting to hear, Marc's opinion that you still need to be friends within the organization, because we are a student organization, so we still have to take ourselves seriously, but not that seriously. Pretend that we're bosses of each other. At least that's my way of seeing it.
Cool. I really like all these views. They're similar, but yet so different. That's kind of cool. Okay, so next statement is the COVID-19 pandemic marks a rupture that requires rethinking economics to adopt a new narrative. What do you guys think? Okay, so I got 2 yeses and 3 nos. Marc, do you want to start?
You
can say no.
I have to think about it a bit more, but maybe as preliminary as David, and then the others can obviously build up on that, is I think in many, so I think firstly the corona pandemic marks a rupture in the real world. In terms of economic history, I think it is the biggest fallout of economic activity that we've experienced in, I think I saw some graphs that mark it the biggest fallout in economic activity throughout the whole century, so even considering the 2 world wars. I think in terms of economics education or the work that we're doing, not so much there. It I think just confirms what we've criticized in the sphere of economics education. So what we criticize is, for example, the lack of real world focus, the lack of explaining how crises evolve, how we deal with this crisis, and very much also showing that the mainstream of economics, or neoclassic economics at least, doesn't have the answers to how we respond to 21st challenges like this pandemic that are so complex and interconnected in nature. I think I nevertheless voted yes, because I think as Rethink Economics Netherlands, we have to also constantly kind of monitor how our messages are appealing to students, and if they are kind of getting at the core of what people at the moment feel is urgent, is necessary, it needs to adjust. So, and in that sense, I feel like we need to update a bit our messaging. Maybe not so much our narrative, but our messaging. I think it is crucial that we highlight the urgency of change, that we highlight the need to prepare students to tackle these crises. Maybe that goes into a direction of adopting a narrative of resilience. Students have to get taught in economics how societal systems or the economic system can be more resilient to these crises. But I think also students themselves have to get more resilient through their education. Like the education should equip students to tackle these challenges themselves if they would face them after their education. And I think it's just time for Rethink Economics to kind of come out and formulate a new standpoint that is also able to mobilize people again and create a new momentum. I think so. I'm more coming from the angle of kind of movement building or like messaging rather than kind of a very analytical sense. Because I think pluralism is still relevant, so we don't have to overhaul our mission. But I think in terms of appealing to students and getting at the core of this time, a new messaging is appropriate.
Interesting. And you had basically two different halves of your year as a chair, right? You had the half where everything was normal, and then you had the COVID half. Did you see a difference with attracting students or students coming in the two halves of the year?
For sure. I mean, I think, so on the one hand, the COVID-19 pandemic constitutes a real opportunity for Rethink Economics to upscale the work, to emphasize the points that we were previously making, because as I said, I think it broadly confirms them and just adds the urgency and the relevance that might not have been so clear to other people before. But in terms of it, like getting into touch with students and keeping up our organizational, operational work, it has become harder, just because much of the work was based on having weekly meetings, seeing people time and time again, just running across to them on campus or going for a coffee and so on. And that consistency in work and just seeing each other face to face has obviously deteriorated. And I think it also links to the point earlier, if we consider that the work that we do all is volunteer based, then it especially requires a dimension of like personal connections and keeping that up, and that has been more difficult in COVID times.
Aleksandra, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think I really agree with Marc. I don't think it's necessarily about rephrasing the narrative of the organization, but it's about rethinking, so constantly adapting to the context we are in. And if the context right now is COVID, then really taking into account everything that's happening and being present and responding to all the different events that are happening, so that we can attract more people with our vision and our mission, and also use the the pandemic to further spread our message, because it has opened up a lot of opportunities, and if we don't adapt, then we could miss out on these opportunities.
Okay. Joris, coming from the other side of the line of chairs, how are you looking at it?
Yeah, I actually, I don't think I have much to add on this one. No.
That's fine.
Well, one thing I liked is the Rethinking International Festival worked very well during COVID, because it was an online festival. So I think Aleksandra mentioned the opportunities that arise now, and yeah, I guess the role of distance has really changed. So it's now easier for someone in Amsterdam to reach someone else in Groningen, but it's harder to reach someone else in Amsterdam.
Okay, Sam or Elisa? Nothing? No? Okay, that's fine too. Okay, so the next one is: the time in the board of Rethinking Economics has significantly influenced what I intend to do or have done afterwards. Okay, I mean, it's all yeses, so let's just hear some stories then. Joris, you want to start?
Yeah, I didn't think much about it. I just voted yes because I've been out of the board for a long time and I'm still doing a lot of rethinking stuff. I see Sam laughing. His mic is on mute, but he's still laughing very loudly.
Nice. Sam?
Yeah, I remember like 4 years ago when I took over the chairmanship from you, that you were like, okay, I'm getting out of this movement. Goodbye, people. And like we even got you a gift. So like, thanks for all your work in Rethinking Economics. And here you are still with us. But I mean, that's great. Like, but you know that I'm that's very much appreciated here. But I think, yeah, for myself, I think at least I like as a person, I think I've changed quite a lot during my 2 years as chair of Rethinking. In my first year, I was just like a student who was just dissatisfied and frustrated most of the time, and who began to read up as a nerd. And I think, yeah, it gave me a lot of opportunities. So I think a lot of us are really in this movement to have an impact on the world, and not so much here for the CV stuff. But I think actually even for the CV stuff, it actually like at least it's also really a big opportunity. And just as a personal development, like it was really big for me to learn how to debate with professors, to like write well and have debates in like participate in public debates through newspapers, to be interviewed by people, to really have an impact, even speaking in front of parliament. So I think at least for me, this was really like becoming part of the professional world, so to say, through this student or movement. So I think that's at least for me quite of an interesting thing. So that's like, yes, we are a student movement, but actually this is also really an opportunity to develop a lot of professional skills that you don't necessarily learn in your program. So yeah, that's of course also why we exist, to make sure that you more learn these kind of things, but actually being involved in rethinking, at least for me, really helped as well. And yeah, right now I'm in the beginning I was like, I maybe go out of economics, and I think partially, like largely because of Rethinking Economics, I really feel like I'm never going out. I'm staying in here, and I kept doing this for my whole life, even though of course I still like it's still a struggle, but because of Rethinking Economics, I sort of felt like it's a shared burden. So it's not just me alone fighting the rest of the world, but it's us together enjoying this difficult fight that we are having. But I'm still enjoying it because we are doing it together. So for me, that was really big.
Okay, I see Elisa and Aleksandra nodding along. Elisa, you want to share any thoughts?
So I even made like a list of things I wanted to mention. First of all, what I really took out from Rethinking was this sense of community. I really, I'm not from the Netherlands, so getting to access a whole bunch of people who, think similarly and not similarly, but okay, are interested in the similar things and are willing to discuss and be critical. That was just incredible, and it completely changed the way I felt in this country, and I felt in the academic circle, so to say, here in the Netherlands. And also, of course, made me really positive and really optimistic about, my position and who I am as an economist or as a student or just as a person. It really strengthened that. And then also to do a bit with what Sam said, it really helped me out with practical skills. So in terms of being a bit active on the debates in the Netherlands, right? So through this experience, I'm now able to understand a lot of the specific debates happening here in the Netherlands. And so, it helps a lot for like my position nowadays as a researcher. I feel that I'm more and more integrated in the Dutch economy, so to say. I know more about it, and I think I lost my fear to speak in public and to talk to like big people, like the chair of the KVK or what it, KVK, no, KVS, you know, and these like, because you will have like these experiences in which you have to confront yourself with like these really old men who think that know it all, you know, and it's nice. You learn that you can say something to them, and yeah.
Oh, okay, Mark.
Sorry. Yeah, I very much agree with everything that has been said, and also I remember kind of in the first and second year of my studies, I was actually more interested in politics and political theory, and I actually thought more about going into philosophy, and then I took up more stuff in Rethink Economics, and now I'm again firmly on the route to do something related to economics, political economy, ecology economics, in my master's as well as in kind of what will come afterwards. Even now, I'm kind of now doing the internship at Positive Money, who work on green monetary policy. That also has kind of appeared out of me being involved in Rethink Economic circles. It's almost a bit, like feeling that I can't escape out of this network, but it has been great. It has opened many opportunities. I think I will continue to be involved because it's something that is very close to me, and made many new friends, also internationally, and it definitely has shaped me, for sure.
Cool. And Aleksandra, I know you can't say that much about it yet, but what are you expecting?
Yeah,
What
it
do
is.
you think so far?
I have to say that it's very inspiring to hear of you and be so positive about this and your experience, because I really hope that it will have an influence on what I do later on, you know, especially maybe my story is a little bit similar to Elisa's, because I'm not from the Netherlands. I come from Poland, where in my hometown there were no organizations like this, and I really felt kind of alone with this mission and this idea, and coming here and discovering this network of people who are really also striving for this for the same things, the same objectives, is really humbling and exciting to be part of. And I really hope that I will be as involved with the mission as a whole in the future as possible.
I mean, the way you came in, I'm betting on yes. So, final statements. Economics is changing for the better, and Rethinking Economics should do more to celebrate that. Now, I know that is maybe a double statement, so you can expand on what you say afterwards. Okay, so 3 yeses, 2 nos. I saw a thumbs up. I think Joris gave a thumbs up. You want to start?
Yes, I did. I gave a thumbs up because it's a double statement, but I agree to both. I think it's changing for the better, but that was discussed before. I also think should celebrate that more because of a specific instance. In November, I wrote a critical. So I now work in a newspaper, and because of having this privilege, I thought let's use it for Rethinking Economics. So I wrote a big article in the Volkskrant about how economics education is monolithic and tunnel vision and should really change. And then it turned out that the staff in Utrecht, where I took my bachelor, with which I started the article, you know, on a sunny morning, I walk into the College Hall of Utrecht and I'm disappointed with the education, something like that. And it turned out that some of the staff at Utrecht were very sad about this. And they were like, hey, we're trying so hard to change, and we adopted the core method, and we're like more interdisciplinary than most. But the only uni you mention in your article about how bad it all is Utrecht. How can you do this? And I don't know. I'm sure they didn't cry all the time since, but it felt like, yeah, it could have been. It could have been just as strongly a message of, hey, something needs to change, but coupled with, but it's also already changing. And also maybe sometimes we can do more to show the front runners, and through showing the front runners also tell the story of how much progress there needs to be made. So for me, that's been a bit of a shift mentally that I would want to describe focus more on, of course, first you need to show what the problem is, but people are sensitive to criticism and quickly stepped on their toes. So it can help if you then emphasize more on where it's already happening better and how great that is. Yeah.
Okay. Elisa or Marc?
I agree with Joris. I happened to also study in Utrecht, and I was also the student assessor during my time that I was a chair at Rethinking. So I was really firsthand seeing the efforts to change from the board. Maybe I also got involved a bit more emotionally because I was in that position. But I really did see them try, and I did feel like, yeah, we should indeed celebrate the wins, even if they're not, exactly what we want, even if we still need more. It's nice to already acknowledge, because otherwise you're just like walking into a wall all the time, right? I mean, I'm not saying that we shouldn't push, but it's nice to acknowledge positive change.
Cool. Marc?
Yeah, I voted no, but I think I'm not too far away from what Joris and Elisa said. I think kind of how I perceive the role of Rethinking Economics in the Netherlands is more to err on the kind of critique side. So our primary job is not to applaud. Those who do good stuff will probably already do them by themselves, at least to some extent. Our job is more to really see where the fault lines are, what are the opportunities for improvement, and what still needs to be done, and encourage and push towards that. That doesn't mean, though, that we should be kind of the Yanis Varoufakis of economics education, just bashing everything and being overly pessimistic. I think that would be a wrong approach. But about the celebration, I think we should certainly celebrate us more. I think we should celebrate our activities, our people, our successes more. And that is, I think, what I would be more concerned with than celebrating others.
Okay. Sal?
Yeah, I think it's sort of related to my point that in the beginning when I joined Rethinking Economics, I was quite pessimistic, and right now I'm more optimistic. And I think a large reason for that has been that there has been quite a lot of change, or at least start of change already. So quite a number of universities like Utrecht, but also in Nijmegen and at the VU, have already said okay, we will really fundamentally change the program, largely because of our activities, our research, our campaigning. So I think that's really like a big change that in the beginning I thought was impossible to achieve. So I think that's really something it's really special and something to celebrate. And I think we can be proud of this. And obviously we are not the sole responsibility for this change. Like there are many people who are pushing for this, but on economics education, we are we are really, at least in the Netherlands and internationally with Rethink Economics, of course, we are one of the biggest movements out there. So I think we should celebrate this, even if it's can sometimes feel like celebrating people who are already doing it. But I think it's also, for example, at if the VU creates a new program and we help promote it once it's there, and then it can become more big and more influential as well. And then maybe other universities will be like, okay, well, maybe we should also take a look at that. So I think it's also, for strategic reasons also can be a useful thing. But I agree also with Marc. We still have to push because there have been changes, but it's way too slow compared to the challenges we face. So.
Okay, Aleksandra?
Yeah, I agree with everything that has been said. I think that sometimes it may seem, that our mission is a lost cause because the core of economics is not changing, because the institutions that are already set in place have been set in place for, such a long time. But there is a lot of change happening around that core, and there is a lot of that positive change is really leaking through to the core, I think, as well. And so these small incremental victories, so to say, really are accelerating, I think, and are really improving. And I think even though, the economics that we have now is maybe not changing, but the way we think about economics, and so the future of economics is really changing. And yeah, I think we should really embrace that, and I think it's great. It's a great time to be part of this mission.
Amazing. Wow. So everybody, thank you so much. That was the last statement. Thank you so much for being here, for making the time. I'm so impressed that we've figured it out to get every chair here. I'm very grateful.